The message arrived on a Tuesday morning. It came from deep space, from a place so far away that the light from its stars had traveled for thousands of years to reach Earth. The year was 2147, and humanity had grown comfortable in its small corner of the universe. They had cities on Mars. They had research stations on the moons of Jupiter. They believed they were alone, or at least, they pretended to believe it. Admiral Park was drinking his morning tea when his communicator began to flash red. He was a man of 62 years, with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen many battles. He commanded Earth's United Defense Fleet from a quiet office in Seoul, and he had learned long ago that red lights never brought good news. He pressed the button and listened. His face did not change. When the message ended, he set down his tea and looked out the window at the rising sun. Then he made 3 phone calls. The first call went to Dr., the chief cryptologist at the Global Intelligence Agency. She was 34 years old, brilliant in ways that made other scientists uncomfortable, and she had a habit of solving problems that others said were impossible. When her phone rang at 6 in the morning, she answered it before the second ring. The second call went to General Shin, the head of Earth's Cyber Warfare Division. He was a large man with a loud laugh, but those who knew him well understood that his smile hid a mind like a trap. He had built Earth's digital defenses from nothing, and he knew secrets that even presidents did not know. The third call went to the Secretary General of the United Earth Council. That conversation was short and ended with a single word from Admiral: war. Within 3 hours, the world's leaders gathered in an emergency meeting. The message was played for them, and the room fell silent. It came from something called the Empire, a civilization that claimed to rule over 40,000 star systems. The message was translated into every human language, and its meaning was clear. Surrender, bow before the Empire. Accept our rule or be destroyed. You have 30 of your solar cycles to respond. The leaders began to panic. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Others wanted to send messages of peace. A few suggested hiding, as if an entire planet could hide from an empire that spanned the galaxy. The arguments grew loud, and fear filled the room like smoke. Admiral said nothing. He sat in his chair and watched the chaos around him. When the shouting finally stopped, he stood up and spoke in his quiet voice. "I need 48 hours," he said. "Do not respond to the message. Do not do anything. Give me 48 hours." The Secretary General asked him what he planned to do. Admiral looked at her with those calm eyes and said, "I plan to learn who we are really dealing with." Doctor had already begun her work. The alien message was long and filled with threats, but she was not interested in the words. She was interested in what hid behind the words. Every transmission carried data that the sender did not intend to share. Metadata, she called it, the fingerprints of the message itself. She worked through the night, her fingers dancing across holographic screens. Her team watched in silence as she pulled apart the alien signal layer by layer. By morning, she had found something that made her smile. "They made a mistake," she told Admiral when he arrived at her laboratory. "Their encryption is good, but not good enough. I can see where this message came from, not just the direction but the exact location. And there is more." She showed him her screens. The alien transmission had traveled through a network of relay stations, each one leaving a tiny trace in the signal. Doctor had mapped those traces. She had found the paths that connected the Empire's communication systems. "I can get inside," she said. "Give me time and I can read everything they send." Admiral nodded slowly. Then he told her something that made her stop smiling. "We already knew they were out there," he said. "We have known for 80 years." The truth was a secret that only a handful of humans knew. In 2067, a radio telescope in Chile had detected an alien signal. It was not a message to Earth. It was a conversation between 2 ships, far away, speaking in a language that no human could understand. The governments of Earth had agreed to keep the discovery hidden. They feared panic. They feared war. They feared what humanity might do if it learned it was not alone. So they watched, they listened, they learned. General Shin had built his entire career on that secret. His cyber warfare division had spent decades studying alien communications. They had learned to read some of the languages. They had mapped the locations of nearby civilizations, and they had prepared for the day when someone would finally notice the small blue planet called Earth. "We are not as blind as they think," General told Doctor when they finally met. His smile was gone now, replaced by something harder. "We have been watching them for a long time, and they have no idea." Doctor understood then why Admiral had been so calm. Earth was not a helpless victim waiting to be conquered. Earth was something else entirely. She did not know yet what that something was, but she felt it in her bones. The fear that had gripped the world's leaders had not touched these men. They had known this day would come, and they had been ready. "What do we do now?" she asked. Admiral looked at her with eyes that held no fear, only patience. "Now," he said, "we show them what humanity really is." Outside the window, the sun rose over a world that did not know its own strength. The people of Earth went about their lives, afraid of the message from the stars. They did not know that their leaders had spent 80 years building something in the shadows. They did not know that the enemy who threatened them had made a terrible mistake. The Empire had sent a warning to Earth. They expected fear. They expected surrender. They expected a primitive species to bow before their power. They did not expect what was coming. Captain had not seen Earth in 7 years. He stood on the bridge of his ship, the Silent Wind, and watched the stars drift past the windows. His crew of 12 worked quietly around him, checking systems and monitoring sensors. They were 300 light-years from home, deep in territory that belonged to the Empire, and no one knew they were there. The Silent Wind was not a warship. It carried no heavy weapons, no missiles, no bombs. It was something more dangerous. It was invisible. Doctor had built the Ghost Drive 20 years ago, working in a secret laboratory beneath the mountains of Provence. She was a quantum physicist, a woman who understood the fabric of space in ways that others could barely imagine. Her invention did not just make ships fast, it made them disappear. The Ghost Drive bent light and sensors around a ship like water flowing around a stone. To alien technology, the Silent Wind did not exist. It left no heat signature, no radiation trail, no gravitational wake. Captain and his crew could fly through the heart of an enemy fleet, and no one would ever know. They had been doing exactly that for 15 years. When Admiral contacted Captain with news of the ultimatum, the captain was not surprised. He had seen the Empire up close. He had walked on their worlds in disguise, studied their military bases, counted their ships. He knew things about them that their own citizens did not know. "They are weak," he told the Admiral through an encrypted channel. "They look strong from the outside, but inside they are rotting. Their empire is built on fear, not power. They threaten and bully smaller species into submission. They have not fought a real war in 200 years." Admiral asked him to explain. Captain told him about the military. Their ships were old designs, unchanged for centuries. Their weapons were powerful but slow. Their soldiers were poorly trained, used only to crush rebellions from unarmed populations. They had grown lazy and arrogant, believing that no one would ever challenge them. "They have numbers," Captain said, "but numbers mean nothing against an enemy they cannot see." This was the secret that Earth had kept for 40 years. Humanity had discovered faster-than-light travel in 2107, but they had never announced it to the galaxy. They had never built colony ships or sent ambassadors to alien worlds. Instead, they had sent ghosts. The reconnaissance fleet was small, only 30 ships, but it had mapped more of the galaxy than any explorer. Earth knew the locations of every major civilization within 1,000 light-years. Earth knew their strengths, their weaknesses, their technologies, and their secrets. Earth had been watching and learning, while the rest of the galaxy ignored the small blue planet in an ordinary solar system. Agent Lee was part of that watching. She was not on a ship. She was on a world called Prime, living among the enemy as one of them. Had left Earth 15 years ago. She had surgery to change her appearance, learned the language until she spoke it better than natives, and built a new identity from nothing. To the people around her, she was a merchant who traded in rare metals. To Earth, she was the most valuable spy in human history. Her network stretched across 12 star systems. She had contacts in the military, in their government, in their intelligence services. She knew which admirals were corrupt, which governors were planning rebellions, which scientists were working on secret projects. Every piece of information she gathered was sent back to Earth through channels that they could not detect. When the ultimatum was announced, was sitting in a cafe on Prime, drinking something that tasted almost like coffee. She watched the news broadcasts as the media celebrated their empire's latest conquest. The humans would surrender, the reporters said. They always did. Every species surrendered when faced with the might of. Smiled behind her cup. These fools had no idea what they had done. She sent a message to Admiral that night. The message contained everything she knew about the Emperor's inner circle, his military commanders, his palace security, and his daily schedule. She had been gathering this information for years, waiting for the moment when it would matter. That moment had arrived. Back on Earth, Doctor was explaining the Ghost Drive to the United Earth Council. The leaders who had panicked days ago now sat in stunned silence as she showed them what humanity had built. "We can put a ship anywhere in the galaxy within hours," she said. "We can fly past their defenses without being detected. We can watch their most secure facilities from meters away. They have no idea we can do this. They have no idea we have been doing this for decades." General added his own information. His cyber warfare teams had spent years studying computer systems. They had found weaknesses, vulnerabilities that the aliens did not know existed. With the right commands, Earth could disable enemy ships, crash their communications, and blind their sensors. "We can turn their own technology against them," he said. "They think their systems are secure, but we have been inside them for years. We know their codes, we know their passwords, we know everything." The Secretary General asked the question that everyone was thinking. Why did we hide all of this? Why did we not announce ourselves to the galaxy? Admiral answered her. "Because we learned from watching. Every species that announced itself to the galaxy was conquered or destroyed. And others like them hunt for new civilizations to enslave. We chose a different path. We chose to be silent, to watch, to prepare. We let them think we were primitive while we studied their weaknesses." He stood up and looked at the faces around the room. "They sent us a warning because they think we are helpless. They are wrong. We are not helpless. We are not afraid. We have been ready for this moment for longer than most of you have been alive." The council voted that night. They gave Admiral full authority to respond to the ultimatum. They did not know yet what that response would be, but they trusted the man who had spent his entire life preparing for this war. In the darkness of space, Captain received new orders. His mission was simple: get as close as possible to the Emperor, map everything, find every weakness, report back. The silent wind turned toward the heart of the enemy empire and vanished into the void. The hunters were moving. Emperor Xii sat on a throne made of crystal and gold. He was ancient by human standards, over 400 years old, kept alive by machines and medicine that his subjects could never afford. His palace covered an entire continent on the world called Prime, a monument to power that had stood for 2,000 years. He had sent the ultimatum to Earth without much thought. It was routine, something his empire did dozens of times each year. Find a primitive species, threaten them with destruction, watch them surrender. The process was simple and had never failed. Why would this time be any different? The Emperor spent his days in luxury, surrounded by servants and advisors who told him only what he wanted to hear. He believed he was the most powerful being in the galaxy. He believed nothing could touch him. He was wrong. Captain arrived in the system 3 days after receiving his orders. The silent wind slipped past defensive stations and patrol fleets like a whisper through fog. No alarms sounded. No sensors detected the small human ship as it moved deeper into the heart of the Empire. Had seen many alien worlds, but Prime was something else. The planet glowed with the lights of 1,000 cities. Orbital stations circled it like rings of steel. Ships came and went constantly, carrying goods and soldiers and slaves from across the galaxy. And at the center of it all, the Emperor's palace brought his ship so close that he could see the windows of the royal chambers. He deployed tiny drones, each one no bigger than an insect, and sent them down to the surface. They flew through the palace halls, recording everything they saw. They mapped security systems, guard rotations, and emergency protocols. They found the Emperor's private garden, his bedroom, his throne room. One drone flew past the Emperor himself as he ate his morning meal. The ancient ruler did not notice the tiny machine watching him from centimeters away. Back on Earth, Dr. Park watched the data stream in. She was the creator of Atlas, the quantum artificial intelligence that processed all of humanity's gathered intelligence. Atlas was not like other computers. It could think, predict, and plan. It had been learning about alien civilizations for 20 years, and it understood the Empire better than the Emperor understood himself. "I have complete mapping of the palace," Doctor reported to Admiral. "Every room, every corridor, every security system. I can tell you where the Emperor is standing at any moment. I can tell you what he had for breakfast." Admiral nodded. "And their military." Atlas displayed a map of the galaxy. Red dots marked the positions of every warship, every military base, every weapon installation. The information came from 100 sources: captains' drones, agents' network, doctors' hacked communications, and decades of patient observation. "We know everything," Doctor said. "Their fleet deployments, their command structure, their emergency protocols. We know which officers are loyal and which ones are corrupt. We know where their supply lines are weakest." High Commander entered the room. He was an old soldier, retired now, but Admiral had called him back for this moment. 30 years ago, had created something called Operation Mirror. It was a plan for the day when humanity would face an alien threat. Every scenario had been considered, every response prepared. The plan had been updated constantly as new information arrived. Now it was time to use it. "Operation Mirror has 3 phases," explained to the gathered commanders. "Phase 1 is intelligence, which we have already completed. We know everything about the enemy. Phase 2 is positioning. We move our assets into place without being detected. Phase 3 is the response." "What kind of response?" asked General. Smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We send them a message they will never forget." Over the next 2 weeks, Earth's Ghost Fleet moved through the galaxy. 20 ships took positions around Prime. 10 more surrounded the major military bases. Others scattered across the Empire, placing beacons and sensors and monitoring devices in places the thought were secure. Agent worked without rest. Her network activated contacts across 12 systems, gathering real-time information about troop movements and political developments. The Emperor had grown nervous, she reported. He had expected Earth's surrender within days, but no response had come. His advisors assured him that the humans were simply slow and primitive. They would bow eventually. They always did. Doctor completed her greatest achievement. She had not just hacked the communication network. She had become part of it. Every message that passed through their systems was and sent to Earth. She could read the Emperor's private correspondence. She could listen to his military commanders arguing about strategy. She could even, if she wanted, send messages that appeared to come from officials. "I own their network," she told Admiral. "They just do not know it yet." The admiral gathered his senior staff for a final meeting. The deadline was approaching. In 5 days, the expected Earth surrender. Instead, they would receive something very different. "We will not fire a single weapon," Admiral said. "We will not destroy a single ship. We will do something much worse. We will show them how vulnerable they really are." He explained the plan. It was elegant in its simplicity. Earth would send a response to the ultimatum, broadcast across every frequency in the galaxy. The message would contain information that should be impossible for a primitive species to possess: coordinates, security details, personal information about the Emperor himself. "We will prove that we have been watching them all along," the Admiral said. "We will prove that we could have struck at any time but chose not to. We will make them understand that their threats mean nothing to us." Captain added the final piece. His drones had prepared a special delivery for the Emperor, a small gift that would arrive at exactly the right moment to drive the message home. "They wanted us to fear them," Admiral said as the meeting ended. "Instead, we will teach them what fear really means." On Prime, Emperor XII slept peacefully in his palace, dreaming of conquest and glory. He did not know that human eyes watched him from the shadows. He did not know that his empire's secrets had been stolen. He did not know that the primitives he had dismissed as worthless were about to change everything. The trap was set. The response was coming. The galaxy held its breath. 29 days had passed since the ultimatum. Across 40,000 star systems, countless species waited to see what would happen to the small planet called Earth. Some felt pity for the humans. Others felt nothing at all. Conquest was the way of things. The weak fell and the strong survived. That was how it had always been. Admiral Park stood in the command center of Earth's global defense network. Screens surrounded him, showing feeds from ships scattered across space. His staff worked silently at their stations, preparing the systems that would deliver humanity's response. "All assets are in position," reported Captain from somewhere near Prime. "Communication networks are ready," added Doctor from her laboratory. "Cyber warfare packages are loaded," confirmed General. Admiral looked at the clock. 3 hours remained until the deadline. He turned to his communications officer. "Open a channel," he said. "All frequencies, every system. Make sure the entire galaxy hears this." The signal went out. It traveled through relays and satellites and communication networks, reaching every corner of known space. It interrupted broadcasts on worlds. It appeared on screens in slave colonies and military bases. It echoed through the halls of alien governments who had nothing to do with the conflict. And then Admiral spoke. "This message is for Emperor XII of the Empire. You sent us an ultimatum 30 days ago. You demanded our surrender. You threatened us with destruction. We have considered your message carefully, and we have prepared our response." In his palace, the Emperor leaned forward on his throne. His advisors gathered around screens, eager to witness the humans grovel for mercy. Finally, they thought. Finally, the primitives would bow. "We decline your offer," Admiral continued. "Earth will not surrender. Earth will never surrender, but we want you to understand exactly why." The screen changed. Data began to stream across it, and the Emperor's smile faded. "These are the coordinates to your throne room," the Admiral said. "Updated in real time. You are currently sitting on the left side of your throne, leaning forward slightly. There are 11 guards in the room with you, positioned at the doors and windows." The coordinates on the screen shifted slightly. The Emperor looked around his throne room. 11 guards, exactly as the human had said. "These are the coordinates to your private garden," the Admiral continued. "You walk there every morning after breakfast. You sit on the bench beneath the silver tree for exactly 40 minutes. You did so this morning at the 7th hour. The Emperor stood up. His hands trembled. "These are the coordinates to your bedroom, your refreshment chamber, your private study. Your emergency bunker. We know where you are at every moment of every day. We have known for years." The data stream expanded. Ship positions appeared, thousands of them, each one tagged with its class, armament, and crew complement. Base locations followed, then supply routes, then communication codes. Secrets that the military had guarded for centuries scrolled across screens throughout the galaxy. "Your fleet is positioned for an attack on Earth," Admiral said. "The third battle group at station, the Imperial Guard at the belt. The reserve fleet holding position at the outer markers. We know where they are. We know their weaknesses. We know everything." The Emperor screamed at his advisors. How was this possible? How could primitives know these things? His military commanders tried to speak, but he silenced them with a gesture. On the screen, the human continued to talk, calm and patient, as if he were discussing the weather. "You thought we were alone and helpless. You were wrong. We have been watching your empire for 80 years. We have been traveling through your space for 40 years. We have walked on your worlds, studied your technology, and mapped your secrets. You never detected us. You never knew we were there." A pause, then the Admiral's voice grew harder. "Your ultimatum expires in 3 hours. Ours expires now. If you attempt any hostile action against Earth, we will share everything we know with every species your empire has conquered. Every rebel group will receive detailed maps of your military installations. Every slave colony will learn how to disable your security systems. Every enemy you have made in 2,000 years will know exactly how to hurt you." The Emperor sank back into his throne. His face had gone pale. "We could have destroyed you," Admiral said. "We could have struck without warning, crippled your fleet, and burned your worlds. We chose not to. We are not conquerors. We are not monsters, but make no mistake, we are not prey." The transmission paused. Something was happening in the throne room. The Emperor's guards shouted in alarm. A small object had appeared at the window, floating silently despite all the security measures that should have made such a thing impossible. It was a drone, a human drone. It slipped through an open window and hovered in front of the Emperor's face. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a small compartment opened, and something fell onto the Emperor's lap. A flag, a small Earth flag, blue and green and white. The drone turned and flew away, vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. The Emperor stared at the flag in his lap, unable to speak, unable to move. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched in shock. The mighty empire, conqueror of worlds, had been exposed as vulnerable. A species they had dismissed as primitive had penetrated their deepest secrets, walked through their defenses, and delivered a message directly to their emperor. Admiral spoke one final time. "We are Earth. We have been watching. We will continue to watch. Send your fleet against us if you wish. It will not end the way you expect." The transmission ended. Silence filled the Emperor's throne room. Silence filled command centers across the military. Silence filled the halls of governments throughout the galaxy. Then the chaos began. On 12 worlds, rebellions erupted within hours. Agents Network had distributed information packages to resistance groups who had been waiting for decades for exactly this moment. They knew now that the Empire could be challenged. They knew that someone had already proven it. The Emperor ordered his fleet to attack Earth immediately, but when his commanders tried to coordinate the assault, they found their systems failing. Weapons went offline. Navigation computers gave false readings. Communication channels filled with static. General cyber warfare teams had been waiting for this moment. They did not destroy the fleet. They simply made it useless. Ships drifted in confusion, unable to find their targets, unable to talk to each other, unable to do anything at all. On Earth, Admiral watched the chaos unfold and felt no joy. There was no pleasure in humiliating an enemy. There was only the grim satisfaction of knowing that his people were safe. "They will want to negotiate," he said to his staff. "Tell them we are not interested. Not yet. Let them understand what they have done. Let them think about what happens next. The galaxy had changed forever. The Empire, once feared throughout known space, had been revealed as a paper tiger, and the small blue planet that no one had noticed had become something else entirely. Earth had announced itself to the universe. The Empire fell apart in 37 days. It did not happen through war. There were no great battles, no burning cities, no fleets destroyed in fire and light. The Empire simply collapsed from within, like a building whose foundations had rotted away to nothing. Emperor XII sent message after message to Earth, each one more desperate than the last. He offered peace. He offered trade. He offered to recognize Earth as an equal power in the galaxy. He offered everything except the one thing that might have mattered. He never apologized. Admiral Park refused every communication. He did not gloat. He did not make demands. He simply said nothing, and somehow that silence was more terrifying than any threat could have been. The first rebellion began on a mining world called Four. The workers there had been slaves for 300 years, digging precious metals from the ground for masters who treated them like animals. When Agents Network delivered the information package, the workers learned something that changed everything. They learned that their security systems had a flaw. They learned that their guards' weapons could be disabled with a simple code. They learned that help was coming. 12 hours later, Four was free. The news spread faster than the Empire could contain it. On world after world, populations that had lived in fear began to rise. They had seen the broadcast. They had watched a single human drone deliver a flag to the Emperor's lap. If Earth could do that, then the Empire was not as powerful as it seemed. If Earth could do that, then anything was possible. Captain and his ghost fleet became legends without ever being seen. They appeared in system after system, delivering weapons and supplies and information to rebel groups. No one could track them. No one could stop them. The military tried to intercept them, but how can you catch something you cannot see? Doctor watched the reports from her laboratory and felt a strange mix of pride and sadness. Her ghost drive had changed the galaxy, but she had never intended it for war. She had built it to explore, to discover, to reach the distant stars that humanity had always dreamed about. Now it was being used to break an empire. It had to be done, Admiral told her when she expressed her doubts. They would have destroyed us. They would have made slaves of our children. Sometimes the only way to prevent violence is to show that you are capable of it. General Shin's cyber warfare teams worked around the clock. They did not attack the systems. They simply kept them broken. Every time the Empire tried to coordinate a response, the systems failed. Every time they tried to rally their fleet, communications went dark. The mighty war machine that had conquered 40,000 star systems could not even send a simple message without human permission. On day 23, the Emperor's own council turned against him. They blamed him for the disaster. They blamed him for awakening a sleeping giant, for threatening a species that should have been left alone. The Emperor was removed from his throne and placed under arrest. His palace, the great monument to power, was sealed and guarded by soldiers who had once served him. A new government formed, made up of military commanders and regional governors who understood that the old ways were finished. They sent a delegation to Earth, not to negotiate but to surrender. Admiral met them in a conference room in Seoul. He was alone, with no guards and no advisors. The delegation was nervous. They had expected an army. They had expected threats and demands. Instead, they found a quiet old man who offered them tea. "We do not want your empire," the admiral told them. "We do not want your worlds or your resources or your technology. We want only one thing." The delegates leaned forward, waiting. "We want you to leave other species alone. No more conquests. No more ultimatums. No more slavery. You will govern your own people as you see fit, but you will never again threaten anyone who wishes to be free." The terms were accepted. What choice did they have? Doctor spent the following months helping to build something new. The communication network she had hacked became the foundation of a galactic information exchange. For the first time, species that had been isolated by censorship could talk to each other directly. They shared technology, culture, and ideas. They formed alliances based on mutual benefit rather than fear. Agent Lee finally came home. She had spent 15 years wearing a face that was not her own, speaking languages that were not hers, living a life that belonged to someone else. When her ship landed on Earth, she stepped onto the ground and wept. The world she had sacrificed so much to protect was still there, still beautiful, still free. Admiral retired 6 months later. He had done what he set out to do. Earth was safe. The galaxy was changing. His work was finished. At his retirement ceremony, he gave a short speech that would be remembered for generations. "They thought we were sheep because we stayed quiet," he said. "They never considered we might be wolves who simply were not hungry. Humanity does not seek conflict. We do not dream of empire, but we will never bow to those who threaten our home. We will watch. We will wait. And if anyone is foolish enough to mistake our patience for weakness, we will remind them of their error." The crowd applauded, but did not smile. He knew that the galaxy was vast and full of dangers. The Empire was only one of many civilizations that might someday look toward Earth with hostile eyes. The work of watching and waiting would continue long after he was gone. Dr. Park continued to improve Atlas, making the AI smarter and faster with each passing year. The quantum intelligence that had helped defeat an empire now turned its attention to exploration. There were billions of stars out there, billions of worlds waiting to be discovered. Captain led the first official expedition beyond the borders of known space. His mission was simple: go further than anyone had gone before and find out what was waiting. The Ghost Fleet, no longer a secret, became the vanguard of human exploration. They were not conquerors. They were scouts, scientists, and ambassadors. They carried with them the message that humanity had learned during its long years of silent watching. The universe was dangerous, but it was also full of wonders. The key was to approach it with open eyes and careful steps. 1 year after the fall of the Empire, Doctor detected something that made her heart stop. A signal from deep space, so far away that it had traveled for millions of years to reach Earth. It was not. It was not from any known civilization. It was something else entirely. She worked through the night, analyzing the transmission. By morning, she had decoded enough to understand what it was: a greeting, a question, an invitation from somewhere beyond the galaxy itself. She took the data to the new admiral, a young woman named Sora Han, who had inherited his position and his patience. "What do we do?" asked. Admiral Sora looked at the data for a long time. Then she smiled. "We do what we have always done," she said. "We watch, we learn, and when we are ready, we respond." Outside the window, the sun rose over a world that had changed forever. Humanity had faced its first great test and emerged stronger than before. There would be other tests in the future, other challenges that would require the same patience and strength. But for now, the people of Earth looked up at the stars and saw not danger but possibility. The universe was waiting, and humanity was ready. And the universe would never forget.